Hi, my name is Soler Mendares. I'm a student at NMSU Carlsbad, and I'd like to welcome you to my presentation, Bilingual Education. The National Virtual Translation Center reported in 2003 that there were 311 languages spoken in the United States. They also stated that 9% of Americans spoke in their native language and in English, compared to 53% of Europeans who spoke in their native language and a second language, many times, which happened to be English. I give you these statistics for this reason. One, I would like for you to ponder this question. Why is it that the percentage for America is so low when we are such a diverse community? And second, how would bilingual education help better our country and our citizens? What is bilingual education? Bilingual education is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary as education in an English language school system where students with little fluency in English are taught in both their native language and in English. As we have been taught through the history of time as we go through school, that our community has not always been an English-speaking society. This land belonged to the Native American Indians, the Mexican inhabitants, and the Spanish settlers. In the book that I read, titled Bilingualism in the USA, The Case of the Chicano-Latino Community, the author Federico Field states, as settlers from the old world migrated to a new world known as America, arrived with very little or no English-speaking skills at all. And the author, Noel Vance, from the research article, Bilingual Education, stated, and even those who traveled to America who spoke English arrived to find that there was a new English being written and spoken that is what we call Anglo-Saxon. With so many people arriving to America, they brought with them their culture, their religion, and their language. The need to communicate with each other is very important. As America was growing and building its government, the people in charge of our country back then were concerned that the immigrants would not know or understand the laws that were being written. So one of the first supporters of bilingual education is Benjamin Franklin. His concern was with the influx of the German-speaking immigrants. He wanted to ensure that these immigrants would not form or create another government within one that was already being established in English. So schools were built to teach the German-speaking immigrants, mostly men, and of course the children, how to speak English. But they did this by teaching them in their native language of German and in English. The author Vance writes that the history of bilingual education is characterized by controversy and savoring support. And Field states that bilingual education is used on a social level as a form of polite discrimination and racism. In the 1960s, when the movement for civil rights and equality was going on, the modern history of bilingual education began in earnest. This is when minorities demanded that their right to preserve their language and their culture, along with receiving an English instruction that guaranteed them equal access to education and economic opportunities. And then there was a case of the Supreme Court hearing of 1964, the case of Lau versus Nichols, that stated that just because Chinese students were being taught with English textbooks does not mean that they were learning the concepts that were being taught to them. So the Chinese students were then able to be taught in their English language and also in their native language. As you may or may not know, this controversy still exists today. Many times you find it in the form of illegal immigrant agendas or illegal law reforms for immigration. So a lot of times too, it just is field states that it is just a form of polite discrimination and racism. There are advocates for English-only programs. This group of individuals are very aware of the diverse communities that exist in our country. But they are very vocal and very persuasive about how they feel that there needs to be one language, a common language, to communicate for all of the people who reside in America. These English-only advocates also feel that if the government offers multilingual services, then it is perceived by the immigrants that they do not have a need to learn to speak English. It could also be perceived that America's dislike for multilingualism seems to discourage learning an additional language, and learning other languages could just be too hard. The English-only group also advocates for Americanization of students, which is to demonstrate loyalty to the United States by abandoning their native language and adopting an English-only view. There are communities that feel the same as English-only advocates. There are also individuals that maybe they are unaware that they were taught through the Americanization of students. But is their vision one-sided? The English-only point of view seems aggressive and a bit closed-minded to me. We live in an era of time where we are able to communicate with anybody in almost any part of the world due to technological advances. We are able to communicate about financial, political, and personal gain. But when we do not allow for such programs to exist, we are also not allowing generations that follow to learn skills that will help them to be more of an asset when they get out into the workforce. In order to be successful in international relationships, communication is the best way to start. The development of bilingual education programs is not to discriminate or segregate those being educated in English-based, but to offer an equal opportunity for academic achievement. At the same time, English-speaking students will be able to learn a second language. In order for these types of programs to succeed, we need three things. First, the community must support the educators, administrators, and lawmakers. Second, there has to be an academic focus that encourages the full realization of a student's academic and linguistic education. And thirdly, and the most important, is there has to be parental support and encouragement. When we encourage ourselves and others to learn a second language, then we are bettering ourselves as a society. I thank you for your time and your attendance.
Good.